Welcome to Talk Branding to Me, the podcast for women building intentional businesses and brands rooted in strategy, not just aesthetics.
Branding doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It's more than design. It's how strategy and style come together to create an identity, build trust, and stand out.
We're your hosts, Jamie Wright of Embellished Brands
And Jessie Ford of Untethered Design Studio.
We're brand strategists, designers, and friends who turned our coffee chats into honest conversations about branding done right.
And wrong.
If you're feeling stuck or unsure about your brand, you're in the right place.
And now, let's talk branding. Welcome back for another episode of Talk Branding to Me. Jamie and I are really super excited for today's episode because this is the first time that we have had a guest on our podcast, and it is none other than our good friend, Jama Finney from Louisville, Kentucky, the area where we all once used to reside. And we met through the Rising Tide Society, if any of our listeners used to be members of that. Does it still exist, guys? Is it still a thing? Tuesdays Together. We used to have these gatherings every month for creatives in the area, and that is how we all met years ago. For today's topic of how to prepare for a brand photo shoot, Jamie and I were brainstorming, and Jama is, of course, naturally the first person who came to mind. And full disclosure, we're also using this episode as a good catch-up session, too, I think, because we're long overdue for just getting together, albeit virtually. So welcome, Jama. We are so excited that you're here.
It's an honor.
Well, before we get going, I would love to tell you all a little bit more about Jama, just to set the stage for the wisdom she's about to drop on us in this episode. Jama is a personal branding and portrait photographer, as Jessie said, based in Louisville, Kentucky. She works with entrepreneurs and creatives who are stepping into what's next. And I love that. What is next? That just opens a whole world of possibilities. And she does this by blending strategic storytelling with soulful portraiture to create visuals that reflect who they are and where they're going. Love it. Jama's work is rooted in connection, with each session intentionally designed to help clients move beyond performance and into presence. What she's saying there is we're going to strip off the mask and we're going to get to the real you. And we will hear more about that a little later in the conversation. Jama also has a background in hospitality. We are kindred spirits in that way. And through that, she brings structure and ease to the entire photo shoot experience that she provides for her clients and friends. That is why we thought it was a no-brainer to ask Jama to join us for today's topic. Jama, let's dive right in. The biggest question that we want to start out with is, for our friends who are listening, why do a brand shoot? What is a brand shoot, and why would it be important for a female business owner to do one?
Well, first, I want to say thank you. I am so honored to be here. Like Josie said, we have known each other for years now, and our businesses have all evolved together, too. So, congratulations on the podcast. And this is my favorite topic. So, let's chat. So, you asked me, why do we do a brand shoot? And we need to dive a little bit deep here. It is definitely our visual branding, whether it is something that's created on the design side by Jessie or by Jamie or actual images. This is the depth and the energy of like the soul of your business. And so all of those pieces need to come together to really do the behind the scenes and storytelling elements. It is your introduction to people before you ever get a chance to meet them, since everything is so virtual these days too. It really just kind of opens that door to show people what is possible if they're working with you, buying your products or services too. There's just a lot of kind of peeks behind the scenes. We talk about products and services, and when your story and your visuals are aligned with your words and your products, that's where the magic happens. And those are the door opening moments, because we're ultimately all looking for people who are aligned best with ourselves and also our brand too. There's just this really cool kind of connective energy that can happen in a brand session, and it means a lot.
I totally agree, Jama. It is definitely the soul of your business, really, because it is how people visually portray you, but it's also an expression of how you make them feel, how they connect with you. That's done through not just a logo, not just photos, not just strategy, not just messaging. It's one big puzzle of how branding kind of all comes together. And obviously, photography is a huge part of that. So, I have a question for you, and I'm sure some of our listeners might be wondering as well. But what is the difference between looking like yourself versus looking like your brand? Can you kind of break that down for us?
Looking at yourself is, we use this word all the time, shows us who you are authentically, like what it is to sit in a Zoom chat and speak to someone or across a table at a cafe, like our traditional networking. This is the authentic connection that happens between people. And this is when it's reflecting yourself. Your branding is a polished version. And what I don't mean by that is we don't want you playing a character or someone who you were not, because people will smell that from a mile away and see it too and experience it. But it's a more polished, intentional version as opposed to your casual, everyday behind the scenes. And where it connects in the middle, and where you can see that entire kind of spectrum and all those pieces come together, that's where, like, the magic of your visual branding happens, I think.
I love that. And one thing that I really enjoy about you, Jama, is you were really interested in the person, just in our friendship and our other conversations, but also knowing you as a photographer. I love that you are so intentional about identifying the person, but also still wanting to showcase the brand that they are wanting to represent, whatever that is for them, and then your results blend the 2 together. So I really appreciate hearing your approach about that because, of course, this podcast is called Talk Branding to Me. So we talk about all these different facets of branding. And a topic that does come up often is that tug of war between a business brand and a personal brand and then the individual. And it's just this, it feels like a complex question that a lot of our listeners struggle with is, well, which part is the part that I need to show people? Which one is real? Which one is true to me? And I think authenticity is probably the biggest key to how you might approach what you want to capture in a brand photo shoot.
So too. I think it's challenging to be your authentic self because we are so used to being performative, even in our everyday lives. Even when you walk into a networking meeting, you still kind of have a shield down, or even when you meet a client the first time too. And finding that authenticity, that takes time. Like, you need to be able to kind of allow yourself to get swept and then find people who you trust to work with who can help bring that out of you too. So I do think it's like the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, and I wanna add, Jama did brand photos for me years ago when we lived in Louisville. The one thing that sticks out to me is I think you allowed me to feel like myself throughout that shoot simply because I was comfortable. When we're comfortable in a space, when we feel safe, we feel like we know someone, we do let that guard down a little bit easier, and our authentic, our real personalities are able to show through and be reflected in those photos. But you're the orchestrator of that as the photographer. I don't know if it feels like a lot of pressure. It's a big task. It's a responsibility that's a part of your job in helping someone to feel safe in front of the camera. That all feeds into someone being able to feel authentic and that really coming through in the final products of those beautiful
Thank you.
images.
I take that to heart. Of what Jesse isn't telling you is that we took some beautiful branding for her, and then we ended up in a field with her horse, and she was so connected and, like, swept up into the moment, and you just couldn't help but see, like, exactly who she was, but also how it ties into her lifestyle and her business too. And that was a really beautiful, strong example of a branding session because it covered all of those things, both the authentic side of you and the brand authentic side of you too. It was cool.
Yes, thank
It was
you.
beautiful.
Well, and you guys get when it is time when you feel comfortable to make the investment in brand photography for anyone listening, get a photographer who is very brave and goes above and beyond like Jama because it turns out she's allergic to horses and she still took
Forgot about
photos
that.
of me and my horse in a field and I felt terrible about it.
No, it was like it's one of
But
my
you would never
favorite
know.
moments shooting, that I was, like, all Benadrylled up, and I had my feet sets.
Like, let's be real, I
We
had to add
live
that in
in
there.
we were in
That's real
well, we
life.
were in Southern Indiana, but it's Kentucky, you can't help but just jump in with the horses and all the animals down
Yeah,
here
she
too,
bit
so
the
yes,
bullet.
we will go the extra mile for you, friends. Your brand photographer will do this.
A really solid good one will, so keep that in mind.
So, to keep up with the momentum of this line of the conversation where it's headed, I'm going to kind of switch up our questions a little bit. Jama, based on, with Jesse kind of talking about working with you and some of the things you've already mentioned, would you mind just diving a little bit more into what maybe two things, and you can decide which makes sense to adjust first. One is I would love to have you share your process with our listeners about how you plan for photo shoots with clients. But then kind of maybe the other side of that coin is for those who are listening, if they're going to take, Jesse's advice and like find somebody who really just works well with them and who's going to do a good job, how do they find somebody that would match their quote unquote brand vibe? So I threw two questions at you at once. I feel like they might intermingle just a little bit. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So, as far as process-wise, brand photography shoots are not only an investment as far as budget-wise, but they're an investment in time. I think even more so in the very beginning of the process when you're starting a brand too, because you're still clarifying a lot of these pieces. The cool thing is, and I know a lot of us do, I have designers and web designers and people who are in industry so we can connect together. So the way it works typically is if the client reaches out to me, then I encourage them to have a phone call with me first. This is kind of our coffee chats. So we take 15 to 20 minutes on the phone, just making sure everyone's on the same page. I ask a ton of questions like, tell me about your brand, tell me about yourself, tell me how you feel about being photographed. I already know the answer to that one. But we start there and just kind of test each other out too. It's almost like speed dating. Yes, for lack of a better term, and I would encourage everyone to do that. Find 3 or 4 people who you can have a conversation with. So, if all is lining up and we're a great fit, then we will start the process of, pulling together inspiration. I wanna see everything you have done on your brand. So if you have your website, you have your products and services ready, I wanna personally, as your photographer, deep dive into it because what my job is to figure out how to tell that story. And it is not your job to figure out all the shots that you're gonna need. That's my job. So I do the research on my end to get to know a little bit more about you and a whole lot more about business. Then we jump on a phone call together, and this is our planning call. What happens in this planning call? I clarify and just make sure that I understand your expectations. We talk about photography that's worked for you before. We've talked about photography that hasn't worked as great for you before. We talk about all the places where you're going to use these images. We brainstorm locations. We talk about styling your outfits. We go down to hair and makeup if it's part of your service too. And then I also share with you what you should expect from the day with me. So I'll talk about schedules. This is going to happen here. This is going to happen there. We will wrap up at a certain time too, because we're all busy people as business owners. And the last thing I want to do is have anyone walk into a session with me and not know what to expect. There's a couple reasons for that. It's because I'm an A-type planner, and I have a
Same.
lot of technical I'm in the right room. We
Love
have a
it.
lot of
Yes.
technical things going on,
Yes.
right, behind the scenes. So I have to make sure that I have myself and my game plan and equipment dialed in, but it's another layer of establishing trust, comfort, Like, I want you showing up to me in the best possible place, and ready to go for this photo shoot because we are gonna collaborate. As far as Jamie, I think your second question was, like, how do you find out if you vibe or how you vibe with the photographer? So, I go back to the whole kind of speed dating thing. I think when you're looking for a photographer, the best place to start is ask friends, or if you have people in the industry or similar industries and you love the work on their websites, call them and ask them who they worked with. So start there. Referrals are probably 90% of my business because they've had an opportunity to come through. I think we can probably all agree on that too. The next thing too is come to the conversation and just be open. Talk about any anxieties you have. Tell us exactly what you need. If you need styling advice and direction, we're here to help with that. If you completely and undeniably just have no clue what you need, tell us that, because brand photographers especially, we're all planners, and we will help you through that process. So if you find that person who you really enjoy talking to, makes you laugh, you find something in common or some common level of trust, it feels organized, and is actually walking you through each step of the process, you've probably found the right person.
Love that. Well, I will just share a quick story. Years ago, had worked on a new brand for a chef. As we were developing this brand, she was very interestingly very clear on what she wanted, the client. And as we were pulling it together, I just kept thinking, gosh, I wish there was a way that we could work with Jama to get some brand photos. At the end of this process, the client says, I think I want to get some brand photos. I was like, yes, I know exactly who I'm going to refer her to because there was a vibe there, like knowing Jama and knowing this client and just seeing this beautiful brand design come to life. I thought there's gonna be magic here if it works out that way. I called Jama and I said, Jama, I've got this client. And Jama actually walked through those questions with me as the person doing the referring. She was like, okay, tell me about the brand, tell me about the client, tell me all these things. And we set up a meeting and it worked so well. And I was so excited to see what was going to come out of that brand photo shoot. But just for anyone listening, I'm telling you, Jama's process works because she
It
really
does.
is interested in knowing who is going to be in front of her camera. And I think that's that hospitality background too that comes in and really just taking control over the day so the client doesn't have to worry about that part. The client just has to show up and like take that mask off, let their guard down, and allow Jama as the brand photographer to work her magic, just follow the process, and then the end result winds up being something really amazing. Just as a kudos to you, Jama, for your work, but also I think your process is something that I wish more brand photographers would do. But I think that's what makes you special. Your background, your skills, your interest in people. You've got a really great process, and it's amazing. And your work shows
Thank
it.
you.
So,
Well, no, I appreciate that so much, and it's so funny. I've also had clients who have said to me before, again, going back to busy, they're like, "I just want you to do everything for me. Like, I literally just wanna show up the day of my shoots, be swept away, hair and makeup me, pick out my outfits and all those things, and I can do that, but we can also work with people who come into sessions who completely have it planned." And I'm working off of the directions that they give me too. It goes both ways. But honestly, if you find a photographer too, this is another thing to think about. If you are a highly organized person and you know exactly what you need for your shots, if you have a very good grasp on your visual branding in all other facets already, you know what the website's going to look like, where those pictures need to go, you could go to a photographer who you really love and adore the work and say, "Hey, can you work with me in this regard?" Maybe it's not your typical game plan, but I mean, that's also a possibility too, because like Jamie said, just like any industry, we all work a little different. Some people might think my event planner process is a little intense. You do also know we do a whole heck of a lot of laughing in these sessions too. So there's not a lot serious about it when we get into it, but we do it because we're results driven professionals. That's why you want to make sure you have the time and the space to really go through the process.
What's really interesting is something you said a moment ago because I actually just myself have a question around this. How much do you, as the professional, as the photographer, appreciate someone like me giving you or offering ideas? Can we do this? Can we do that? Do you appreciate someone that suggests, what about this background? What about this wall? Those tiny little details. What if I sat here? Or do you like to have most of the control in a good way?
This is what I will say. I have clients on both ends of that conversation. And what I find is if you come to the conversation with your photographer and have at least somewhat of a vision, even more so if you have the specifics kind of already laid out, I love that because what you're doing is you're basically pulling the veil away from my eyes and you're showing me what you love, what you aspire to in these visuals, and what you expect from me. Because otherwise, it's a guessing game. And the way I do it in that case is if I have somebody who is not clear, like Jesse was, like Jamie would be, and some of my other clients, what I usually do on that end instead, because I'm still looking for clarity, I will start pulling inspiration. I'll start pulling visuals wherever we can find them. There's inspiration everywhere. And then I will show that client and say, how about this? How about this? And try to draw them kind of into the conversation. So I will say, if you have a game plan and the two of us can mix it together, I think that really probably provides the most clarity in a session and some of the best results. The other thing I think too is it helps us bridge that gap between what you're like personally and then your branding, because we can kind of show all those facets. If I have somebody who's a little bit more unclear in their session and a little bit more free bird about it, we're probably going to be leaning a little bit more towards portraiture, more focusing on you as the human than your brand. And there's no wrong way to do it, you guys. Like it's instilled too in these sessions. I always build time in for play. There's always unexpected shots. And a lot of times, it's nothing that my client or myself even thought about, and those are always some of the most incredible moments too.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
yeah.
That.
you can have all of that and still keep your train on the rails too.
Well, and what I also appreciate is I remember not feeling rushed. Like, we stayed on schedule, right? It was planned, but we left room for flexibility, and like you said, play and maybe some unexpected. And I think what we can say with any part of branding, whether you work with a designer, a strategist, a photographer, a copywriter, whoever, at the end of the day, it is about the experience. They're making the investment in an experience, and you deliver that, and you do it at 200%.
Well, and to think about it's sometimes the journey is just as valuable or more than the actual outcome too. We all work with a lot of female clients, not exclusively. I mean, just humans in general, and we're constantly evolving. So to be pulled through this design or branding process with whoever you're working with, you're never going to know exactly what the results are going to look like in the beginning. It's that path that you follow too.
I hope we're making the case for our listeners that if they aren't convinced yet to do a brand shoot, then I hope they will think more carefully about it. Jesse and I do know, and Jamie, you probably as well, that working with clients, often there might be a hesitation to commit to doing a brand shoot. It may not necessarily be rooted in budget or anything really practical, but perhaps there's an element of fear or maybe a lack of confidence, or somebody who tells themselves, I don't like being photographed, or I don't know what to do when I'm in front of the camera. Or what do I do with my hands? Because like my hands get awkward as soon as I know I'm in front of a camera. So what would you say to those people who have those thoughts and concerns?
So, Jamie, it would not surprise you to hear me say, you have to embrace the awkward because
Of
I
course.
don't know
Of
that there's
course.
any other I mean, truly, when you decide to dive into build business building, we know, especially in the current world we live in, there's nothing more effective than the storytelling. And I can promise you, with the majority of the brands we work with, all of your people are going to be curious about the person who is creating. Just facts. So you can start a business with a couple headshots and things like that, but at some point, you're gonna need to show up in face and voice. So there is going to be awkward, and that's why it's so important to pick somebody who you love working with too, because I can promise you, no one loves to be in front of the camera in the beginning. I think some of us evolve into loving it more. I've taken a lot of self-portraits because I wanna walk the walk to talk the talk, and so I've gotten better at it over the years too, but there's just a lot of embracing and diving into the deep end, and let's be honest, like, there are always photos that I take that will never, ever see the light of day. They just won't. I mean, they're fine. I will never publish any photos of anyone, number 1, that they don't wanna have seen.
I have some logo concepts like that.
Right, right. They're fun to have and kinda keep for the memories. But it's just at the end of the day, they're digital images. You have control of how you're being seen and what is shown, and there's gonna be some awkward moments. There's gonna be plenty of them that don't ever see the light of day. Sometimes we just have to take a deep breath and get over ourselves a little bit.
When we embrace the awkward, though, that is where someone's personality sometimes really comes out, and you capture those unique images that you wouldn't otherwise have. I'm sure that there have been shoots that, even as perfectly planned as they might have been, you being super organized and the client being super organized, hopefully they took some surprising turns and maybe ended up differently, than you expected. Even at our shoot, like we were very consistent with the brand and capturing everything I wanted, but there were definitely some great images thrown in there as well that I probably didn't even realize you were taking at the time. They turned out super fun, and still stayed consistent with the brand and brought some different life to it otherwise. I think this is a good segue into talking a little bit more about the investment. If we have listeners interested, right? You're hearing this conversation and you're like, James sounds fabulous. I want to find a photographer like this who can help me bring my brand to life through imagery. Jamie and I talk about this a lot. Some people will start, and you mentioned this too, Jama, starting with some headshots or doing like mini sessions, allowing someone to kind of get their feet wet if they've never had photos done before. So I guess two parts to this question. Do you recommend that for someone just starting out who's maybe not quite ready to make a full investment in large brand shoots? Because we kind of always recommend that to clients. You don't have to do like some all day shoot. Do you recommend that for people starting out? And then when do you feel like you see a lot of clients ready and hitting that point where maybe it is time to elevate and invest in a larger shoot?
Sure, sure. That's a great question. I think that as far as where to start, anywhere you start is a good place to start. And especially in building a business, and it's such a learning curve in any direction possible building a business. And so when you are kind of building out budgets and considering where you're going to be, there are plenty of amazing headshot photographers who can have a quick 15-minute session with you. When you have shots of yourself that you love, it makes an enormous difference in the way that you share and show up, even if it's just 2 or 3. I think it's paramount that whether you love to have the studio look or you love in a more environmental outdoor look, get your headshots in those areas. You can find people who will meet your budget. We can even talk budgets too, as I pay a lot of attention, and I have branding and headshot photographer friends across the states at least. So you're probably looking at 350 to 450 for a headshot session on average, depending on how many shots you're gonna take. That's a great stepping off point. That may be a photographer who you slide into branding with down the road, or it may not be. It just depends. So I think your next step, we call them mini sessions or short studio sessions. That happens when you are really getting into the meat of your brand and you have specific placement photos, whether it's on your front page of your website or your about page. You really need to update everything on LinkedIn and across your social platforms. Maybe you're a speaker, an author, or a coach that also likes to get on podcasts too. So you need a couple appropriate images for those. I think that's a great time for a mini session or a short studio session. It just depends on who you're working with. I've seen those jump off from 750 to 12 or 1,300 in that range, and it just kind of depends on whether your makeup is included, and then also how many shots do you. So, Jesse has done a half-day branding session with me too. So, half-day branding really is when you have a clear, specific picture of exactly how you're going to use these images, and you have a bigger audience, in my opinion. So, Jessie, because she's a designer, she's really great at using these images and repurposing them in a lot of different ways too. But that's when you are growing social media platforms. That's when you are designing multi-page websites for a personal brand. That's when you are launching products. I do product shoots integrated into my branding shoots too. So if you have physical products, we can also photograph those at the same time. It's just a more multi-layered exploration. Most branding photographers on a half day, they are about 3 to 4 hour sessions. They include hair and makeup and a style guide and usually a shot list so you know what you're getting into when you go into these sessions. Usually 30 images on up. Some of them sell them by image, some of them sell them by package like I do because I wanna make sure that you get the best of the best shots, and those jump off anywhere from 1,500 to 25 to 3,000. I'm just trying to give price ranges. I hope that's helpful. It's important that we set expectations for anything that we're budgeting for our business. So that's what I see in my industry. And then if you go into full day, you're into multiple outfits, multiple locations, probably an assistant or somebody else on site, definitely a full on hair makeup stylist for us to get that right for you for a huge variety of images. I usually do those for people who have multiple layers to their business. So maybe they have one-on-one coaching packages, but they also have group packages, but they're a huge podcast celebrity and they also write books too, so they need different looking images for each one of those sections of their business. You guys, it's amazing how much you can get done in a day. I mean, honest, you could have 150, 200 plus images that could last you. I think that was a question you were gonna ask me eventually, that could last you through a season or 2 of your business too. Because if you're gonna spend the money, and you're gonna spend that effort and time to really plan these sessions and make it happen, let's multi-purpose and get the most bang for your buck, literally, out of these sessions. So, that's kinda price ranges for full days, I usually see those kind of in a 5 to 6 range, but again, it kinda depends on where you are, and the photographer you're working with, and locations, because there's a lot more budget-wide things to consider for those too.
I feel like, Jesse, you and I have had a conversation, and I cannot remember if it was on a podcast or if it was just between the 2 of us, but I do know that we have talked about how important it is to maybe even just make branding a line item in your business budget. And that can go towards a variety of branding things, but even more importantly, saving up some money to then pay for a really awesome brand photo shoot. Because, Jamie, just as you were describing, you can if done strategically and intentionally, you can get so much mileage out of that half day or the full day, and it is an investment, but you get that ROI. You get that return on the investment that you are making. So, making a petition for small business owners to put
Thank
branding
you.
line item in their budget. Use it for what you want, but if you ever think, "Gosh, I need some new photos," guess what? You've got that line item in your budget. It should be a little bit easier to say yes to a brand photo shoot opportunity.
Well, and even have that conversation with your accountant or bookkeeper too, because you can even look at potential props, styling, style pieces. There are creative ways that you can use that, incorporate into that your line item spending too. If you want to travel to a photographer here and there, if you want to come to Louisville and see me, there's travel expenses that are potentially covered. But the other thing I wanted to say too, because when I started, and I've had 2 small businesses, 2 creative businesses that I've grown too. We all have to start somewhere. So if you are looking at the budget that you have in your business right now, call that favorite photographer and say, "Hey, this is the budget I have right now. Where can we start?" And let them kind of guide you too in that process because not everyone fits into we none of us fit into a package, but not everyone fits exactly into the packages that are available or maybe you see online. I'm happy to have that conversation with folks anytime. This is where I wanna start. This is where I'm heading. What can I do, Shane? And I'll work around it. We'll make it happen.
Jamie and I were talking about needing to get like new headshots and photos sometime soon, individually and together, even for this podcast, because this is a brand as well. I know, speaking as a brand designer, I know Jamie will relate to this too. Good brand photos are everything. I love when someone comes to me and they have photos or they're planning to get photos done. And then we end up working so well together because they use my mood board or they use my, brand board, and their photographer appreciates seeing a color palette, seeing some styling, seeing some visuals because it gives them something to work off of. They deliver great brand photos. I get those back, use them in the branding, use them for social media images on their website. I cannot tell you how much good photos elevate a website design. It makes my job so much easier. We all are going to still use stock photos from time to time for different things. There's always a time and place for those because I will also have clients say that, well, can we just use some stock photos for now? And I'm like, yes and no, we will use them at times, but there's nothing comparable. You cannot even compare a stock photo to a brand photo because it's you. Your brand photography is unique to you. You are the only person in the world that will have your images where anyone else can go download a stock image and a million other people are using the same ones. We see them all the time on people's websites and social media, but I think you can make the case in so many ways for why you should invest in brand photography. It's the experience that you get at the end of the day, and it's the fact that you get a collection of images that are uniquely you. No one else will ever have them. That alone should be the case for, I think, in getting photos. You can start small and get some quick headshots and grow from there. And some businesses will always grow and evolve over time and that they're meant to. So I think the photography, of course, goes right along with it. And you can make the case for, hey, even if it's every couple of years or every 2 to 3 years, whatever, get new headshots, get new brand photos because those photos evolve with you when you're the brand.
That's true.
Well, just to wrap up this conversation with Jama, are there any final thoughts that you want to offer before we sign off for today?
Sure. Brand photography is a multi-layered experience. When I started as a photographer, I thought about the aesthetics of it and kind of the technical side of things because we wanted to make our images right and to make them beautiful. The aesthetic at the time was very similar. A lot of our branding looked very similar. So over time, as I got better as a photographer and kind of connecting with my clients, what I really realized is that this was our very unique opportunity to dive in to something not only that's intimidating, so sometimes we have to do the hard things, right? But also to learn more about ourselves through a really cool, unique, creative process. So what I said earlier, you get this gorgeous library of images. It makes the designer's job easier, which is huge to me too, because I work with so many designers. But it's the internal change and evolution over time. I promise you,
Yes.
this is so cool, you guys. I have clients who I've worked with that these two know too, from the very beginning, who have now had multiple shoots. And there is nothing like me seeing them through the creative and grow and develop in their business. And also as humans, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, they're such cool storytelling moments. But not only that, you get to do the hard thing. In the beginning, it was something maybe that you weren't necessarily looking forward to, but you get to feel and understand and carry the impact of how that has changed you as well. And I have so much pride. I mean, you can hear it, of course. I have so much pride in the work that I do, but even more so, the clients who I have who step up and do this for themselves and allow me to be a part of it, I'll never stop. I'll never stop doing it. But I guess that's what I want to share is that wherever you're able and ready to dive in, let someone else see you and let someone else, like, show you yourself, and I promise you will not be disappointed. It will fill your heart, it will give you confidence, and it will help you take you to the next level in the next session.
So good, so good. Well, Jama, tell everyone how they could follow along with you. Where can they find you on the World Wide Web?
I would love that. So my website is jamafinney.com. So it's J-A, and as in Mary A, Finney.com. I also have a blog that I have created over the past year or 2 that shows, like, good examples of work, but even more importantly, of course, big shock, I am storytelling on there as well. So it'll give you some good kind of information, even if I'm not accessible for you location-wise on questions to ask or ask photographers you may want to work with. And then I'm also, of course, on Instagram, Jane Finney Brand Photo, so you can find me there too. And you're also welcome to email me anytime if you have questions or just want to bounce things off of me. I'm happy to share my knowledge, and it's jama@jamafinney.com, and you can send me a note.
And listeners definitely take advantage of that. I mean, you can tell from this podcast that Jama is a wealth of knowledge, and she's literally the kindest, most open, welcoming person that you could possibly work with. So, whether you're in the Louisville area or otherwise, she's such a great resource. I know that we appreciate having the connection to her. So, Jamie, I think it's that time.
It is.
We always come to at the end of each episode. We like to close it out the same way with a segment called Talk Branding to Me. So, Jamie, I think it's your turn. Talk branding to me.
In the spirit of today's conversation and the theme that we've had about brand shoots, I actually want to share an idea with our friends. Actually, this is probably something that came from a conversation I've even had with Jama in the past. So, Jama, you are welcome to share your thoughts on this too. I love the spirit of collaboration between entrepreneurs and especially female entrepreneurs. Like, I just love how women just don't hesitate to help each other out. So, here's what I'm going to throw out for our friends who are listening today. Think about how you might ask your business friends to help support you with showing off your brand. And maybe more specifically with a brand shoot. Um, One idea that I have always loved and have yet to implement is to have a bunch of business owners get together, book a photographer for a half day or a full day, and get everyone together. And I realize, and Jama might be thinking on the inside about how much work this is going to be. But if you've got people willing to help each other out, share the cost, but also you can work with each other to get enough brand photos that you all could use. And here's a couple of examples. For me, I am a service provider. When I think of a brand photo shoot, I think of course, pictures of me and the typical, maybe me with a computer, or maybe now me with my microphone that I use for the podcast. So we've got some props. But it would also be helpful to have some brand photos of me sitting and talking with somebody who is posing as a client of mine, or me maybe in a room with a few other people just having conversations to show that, I'm in community and I go out and I participate in the world and work with a lot of different people. How do you illustrate that through a brand photo shoot? Well, you've got to bring some other people in. My little talk branding to me nugget for you guys listening today is get creative and get resourceful and think about how maybe you and your local business friends could come together and help each other out by doing a big shoot, but give each person a portion of that and you just jump in each other's photos as necessary to help them out. And a very specific example I have is Jamal was a photographer for another mutual friend of ours who is a product based business. This friend would do product shoots. And so she's not the one holding every single product. She asked a few of us to come along and just show up at a location and demonstrate her product, hold them, walk with them, lay them on a counter, doing a lot of different things. Talk about not knowing what to do with your hands sometimes when you're in front of the camera. I know that feeling. But then you just show up and you're having fun and you create magic. And so that was an idea I would still love to see come to fruition one day. But I thought I'd throw it out there in case it's helpful for anyone who's listening. Jama, would you like to chime in on that and offer some thoughts?
Sure. I am challenging you to do that this year. You have been talking about this.
Oh, this
If
is
you need to
why
fly me in,
this is why we love Jama. She gets
you
to the heart of it. Okay, I will
and
think about that. Yeah,
this is what I love about, Jamie and Jesse and just, like, female entrepreneurs all working together towards a common goal, which is keeping your sanity as you're a business owner, but then also heading in the right direction too. So, I love the spirit of the idea. I think it's wonderful for camaraderie. I think it's wonderful for community. I think it's good for our soul anytime we can have that energy and share a room together too. And I think in the spirit of being able to get people to actually show up for brand new headshots and get some new content, it's an A-plus idea. Like, why would you not do that? I know as a photographer, I have managed in situations like this before, and you just embrace it. Like, you just go with the flow, embrace I was gonna say chaos. It's not chaotic. It's just there's a lot of action going
there
on in
is.
your
Yeah.
space, and that's okay. And so what I do in those cases, I just come in with the attitude of look at all these amazing women in this space who are all spending their time and energy to help each other. And we couldn't help but get some great images. There's not as many of those shot list plan images in these cases because you're just I'm kind of behind the scenes taking the shots and things like that, doing a little conducting too. I think we all need to do that. Maybe you should challenge me at return here in Louisville. Maybe I need to get
I feel a
no, I
collab
threw the
coming
mic
on.
down. But no, I think anytime you can get in front of a camera, your girlfriends are your cheerleaders. There's no one else who is gonna hype you up in the same type of way than a fellow business owner. Why the heck not? Do it now.
Well, guess
Love it.
what? I'm gonna be sending out some emails, and Jama, you'll be on there as well, and we'll see if we can maybe figure out
Okay. Well, there's plane
a plan.
tickets to you, so
That's true. This conversation was so good. Once again, thank you so much, Jama, for taking the time
thanks.
and visiting and having this amazing conversation. I hope our listeners take away a lot of juicy branding nuggets from it, as I'm sure they will. Hopefully, we proved some good points today to encourage them to maybe take that leap and get in front of the camera. So, thank you again. And with that, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode of Talk Branding to Me. Thanks for listening to Talk Branding to Me. If today's conversation sparked a new way of thinking about your brand, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a fellow business owner who's ready to think deeper about branding and have fun with it too.
For more branding insights, behind the scenes conversations, and resources to support your brand journey, connect with us at Embellished Brands and at Untethered Design on social media.
Don't forget, branding is more than just aesthetics. It's both strategy and style.
Until next time, remember, you're fully capable of building a brand you're proud of, and we're here cheering you on every step of the way.